We are live and we are here today to talk about navigating today's market as a buyer. So joined with me today, Stacey. And Stacey Petruch is with Dominion Lending, and she's my amazing mortgage broker that I work with. And then there's myself, who I'm the realtor, and I'm trying to fix my screen here so I'm not cut off. And both of us work together closely when it comes to working with our buyers. And we wanted to pop on today. I don't know if you're watching this after because maybe you're enjoying the hot weather right now and you're watching a playback. But if you're watching live, if you click in the comments, you can let us know any questions that you have. We will answer them throughout. And we're going to go through a whole process of what it looks like to be a buyer today versus last year. Because last year was very different than this year. And really this year is different than it was even a few years ago. So we're going to start off by talking to Stacey about pre-approvals. Do you find pre-approvals taking the same amount of time? I mean, obviously they're supposed to be getting pre-approvals before we look. That still hasn't changed. What's your scope on that?
So nothing's really changed with pre-approvals. It's not as busy as it was last year at this time. So I would say maybe they're a little bit quicker getting them out to the clients, but from the time we start the discovery call, get an application, get documents from the clients, we can have pre-approval within 24 hours. So it's still pretty quick.
And when it comes to pre-approvals, what is it that people need to provide to you to get an actual pre-approval?
So definitely a difference between pre-approval and pre-qualify. So pre-approval is what I do. So after we have phone call application, I usually have 4 income documents, so job letter, pay stub, T4s, information to confirm if they're self-employed. So there's lots of paperwork to confirm income that way. Payment, ID, and then we'll do a current credit check. And then between all of that, we should be able to have some numbers for them.
So it's important for people to understand a pre-approval from last year at this time, because I think there's probably some buyers out there right now who, when they were looking last year, they just kind of got tired of all the multiple offers and the constant bidding and not winning. And also the fact that you really couldn't put any conditions on in order to win an offer. They might have that pre-approval from last year because they did it, but they didn't buy a house.
Right.
It doesn't work anymore now, right? Like it's not going to be the
same.
They
definitely want to get a new one in place because interest rates were quite a bit lower last year. The qualifying rate is higher right now. So it could change what they qualified for last year possibly won't be what they qualify for right now. So it's really
important to get that done because we were just talking about, so interest rates are different. So last year's interest rates was lower. So you could technically approve for more if your interest rate was lower last year, right?
Absolutely. Because how the government works is they have the stress test. Last year was 5.5. Now with the interest rates higher, it's their interest rate plus 2%. So if we're qualifying at 4.34%, which is the current 5-year insured rate, we have to qualify the whole mortgage at 6.34%. So it's a lot different.
Even though that's maybe not the interest rate they're paying, they still have to be qualified at that.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's something interesting for people to remember, because a lot of people might have mortgages right now on their home and they think, well, I qualified for this amount. I own a house already, right? So I should just automatically, if my house is worth 500, I should automatically be able to buy a house for $500,000 or $600,000. That's not always the case though.
No. And with income changes, not only are the interest rates changing, but income changes. Maybe, your children are older and we're not able to use the child tax benefit that we were able to. It's really important to get fresh eyes on your application. Make sure things might be exactly the same, but they might not.
I know people are going to want to ask this, so I'm going to ask it for you. What is the interest rate right now that people are seeing?
So the 5-year fixed rate now is 4.3%. That's insured, so less than 20% down. And it's coming down. Rates are coming down. So
you told me, I think last week you told me 4.34.
What did I just say? Sorry?
4.30.
Oh, sorry, 4.34. It is 4. Sorry.
Okay. I was like, it came down.
Oh, 4.34%. That's the interest rates, right? Interest rate right
That's
now.
a lowest 5-year fixed. And then
that's a 5-year fixed.
Variable Variable people probably aren't doing so much right now because that's technically higher, right?
Yeah. So the variable rate is prime minus 1%. And prime right now is 6.7%. So we're looking at 5%. Now, that being said, they are expecting the prime rate to come down. And when you take a variable rate, you can lock into a fixed rate at any time, but you're subject to what the lender is offering that day. Also, there's lenders right now that are coming out with shorter terms, competitive 3 and 4 year. So that's something, you're not stuck with a 5 year. You don't always have to take the 5 year. There's lots of options.
Just, I think they're trying to stimulate people to buy again, because I think that was a huge reason why we saw a bit of a slowdown in the last half of the year. Just the rates just kept going and going up and up and up and up. And it was just like, when is it going to stop? Right? Like,
so thankful to see them starting to come down.
Yeah,
we're so happy.
Well, okay, but it's not going to come down to like 2% again. No,
I think what we're expecting in the environment, the rate environment, is for rates to come down to around 4, sit around there for a bit, maybe high 3s in a year or so, but I think that's where we're going to be looking at.
Mortgage that's renewing next year. That would be great. I also have a variable mortgage on another house, so I'm just like riding it out because it's not enticing enough for me to fix anything. Because I know it's like scary, but for us, we're just going to ride out into the storm. So when a buyer
I have the variable rate too, so.
Oh, what is the variable rate? Oh, you have it.
Well, I have the variable rate on my mortgage.
Right. Yes. So when it comes to buyers today putting down payment options compared to last year, I think we talked about this earlier. There's a different option that just came up, but there's also the traditional ways to do a down payment. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So down payment, you have your typical savings. You can use your RSPs. So if you're considered a first-time home buyer, you can use up to $35,000 of your RSPs. And then you have 15 years to pay them back. And then the other option came out is the tax-free home savings plan. So the government is allowing you to save $8,000 a year tax-free to a maximum of $40,000 to be used as a down payment. Mm-hmm.
So that's okay. How does that work? Like, so if I want to start saving, that means I could put away for 5 years max up to $8,000
a year.
A year. But if I wanted to save something right away, how does that work? Because if I wanted
to get in
buy
touch with a financial advisor.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll have to get in touch with a financial advisor or the bank. Same as the RSPs. You'll have to make sure you have room for tax savings, and you'll have to set it up as a tax-free savings account.
Okay. Just hello to John who's watching us. We will post your comment here in a little bit because I am actually going to talk about types of houses you can buy in the city here. So in terms of down payment, so we got the down payment, we got the pre-approval. I mean, you do ask that anyways when you're getting a pre-approval. We have to sort out where your money is coming from. A lot of people always ask me, so when we write an offer, you have to put a deposit down. And that's not an extra on top of your down payment. That is part of your down payment. However, you need to have access to it immediately because once we write the offer, we have to submit that deposit. So we need a deposit of, depends on the price range of your home, anywhere from $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. And again, if you're putting $80,000 down for your down payment and you're putting $10,000 down for the deposit, it's a $70,000 difference, right? So it's not extra. But if you're, for example, taking it out of an RSP, probably it's not that fast to get out.
No, and you don't want to withdraw your RSPs until you've read your conditions on the property. So that comes into point to options for down payment, gift. So maybe you don't have, but your parents or a family member can lend you the deposit, like give you the deposit. Maybe that's an option. Or perhaps you have a line of credit, a personal line of credit where you can borrow the money from as well until you pay it back with your RSPs. So there are definitely options.
And that's something important for people to know because the RSP thing is you can bring the rest of it after you've removed conditions, but beforehand, you will get the money back to you. People think, if I put it down, I don't buy the house. That's exactly why you don't want to cash your RSPs in yet, right? But you will get the money back if you decide not to buy the house.
Right. Refundable.
So
Always refundable.
yes. Well, unless you decide to buy the house and change your mind. That's totally different.
Yeah.
That's a whole other story. So in regards to, so we've got all that mortgage stuff taken care of. Stacey gets that all done. Then I sit down with the client, and that hasn't changed. We sit down and do a buyer consultation. Not every single realtor operates the same way. And so you've got to kind of determine who you want to work with, what their expertise is, what they specialize in, if you feel like they're representing you properly. And that's why we did the consult, because I want to see if it's a good match on my side, and then you need to see if it's a good match on your side. And once we go through that in the buyer consult, I actually do go through a series of questions to really understand. One of my clients said, you just asked me a bleep ton of questions, but he said it in a positive way, because he's like, then you truly understood what I was looking for, and you didn't make me do the heavy lifting.
Right.
And I said, oh, what does that mean? And he said, well, in my past experiences, I had to do the heavy lifting as in like searching for homes on their own and finding things and driving around. But I was like, that's weird. I'm the realtor. I can, as long as I understand what you're looking for, I can find it for you. And that's why I have that consult, because I really want to understand. Because once we start looking at houses out there, so that's the big difference this year compared to last year. Last year, as soon as the house came on the market, we had to go now. And then we had to be prepared to write an offer immediately and know that we're going to be competing with about 10 other people. Now, we still see multiple offers today, but it's definitely not the same as it was last year. So you'll see, and you see properties that are sitting on the market a lot compared to last year. Last year, nothing was sitting on the market. Everything was gone. Even if it was overpriced, it was gone because people were paying too much money. But now it's interesting. So I wanted to show everybody what you can get for your house. So this is our friend John here. He said he would like to buy a house in Tamarack if we sold our house in BC. So we're going to talk about that too. So if you keep watching, we're going to talk about how you buy and sell at the same time, even if it's out of province. So let's take, for example, I'm going to show you our MLS here. So I'm going to go in here and take a look at what can we get for our money. There's a lot of people asking me for what can we get for under 300,000, and I'll show you. So I'm going to take away the pending. I'm just going to look at actives, and I'm going to look up in Edmonton. Now, Sherwood Park is a stronger market, so if you're looking to go there, you're definitely going to likely be in multiple offers there. We're going to go max.
Say 300, maybe even more. You're looking at something with condo fees, right?
Well, I'm putting single family, so I'm going to see what I can get for 300. In Edmonton, I can get 280 properties. And I don't know what kind of homes those are. I'm just telling you, there are the abilities to get that price point, but I don't think you want them. So I'm just going to put 250 to 300, just so we can narrow it. Oh, that's still a lot. Okay, watch this. I'm going to put minimum square footage, 1,000, and it probably will be gone. Oh, 58. Okay, let's just take a quick gander at this. So these are not necessarily the greatest neighborhoods in the city, but this is what you're getting. Like old.
Fixer upper.
Oh yeah, this is a whole nother level of fixer upper. This is like a gutter. Because you've also got the aluminum windows. You've got the old kitchen. Yes, there's lots here. So you can see the areas, they're all over the place. There's some North End, Mill Woods, Alberta Avenue, these are areas I don't typically recommend to people to buy, because you can get it for cheap, but then the equity doesn't grow a whole lot. It stays pretty consistent, if not similar. But let's take a look at this area of Tamarack that John is interested in. So Tamarack is located in Southeast Edmonton, and it is one of the cheaper areas in the city. Let me just take a look at Tamarack.
It's a growing community for.
There you go. He says 450 budget. Okay. So show you 400. As soon as you hit over 400, you are going to get no condo fees, but you are going to get something that Here's my guess. Oops. My guess is you're going to get a house that has a detached garage, but no garage. With 4 properties.
Something to pop in there and talk about too really quick is purchase plus improvements. So if you do find a property like this that doesn't have a garage, but you want a garage, we can always look at adding the improvements to your mortgage for that. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at properties. And
so there's a garage on here. It's a single car garage. This is in Tamrock. I showed a house like this tonight, actually, almost identical. So usually because the garage is in the front, you're going to have a backyard. Now, it is going to be a smaller home, so I don't know what people are expecting in terms of size. That is granite countertops. And it's going to be, this is my pet peeve, is the garage with the washer dryer. Not something I love. Just imagine it's all dirty and then you drop your clothes on the floor. The basement's finished here too. Or maybe that's a bonus room. Well, that was a bonus room. That's interesting. That's rare to find in duplexes because typically they're in the newer duplexes. So not bad. In case people are wondering the size of the yard, I can actually look that up too. So what we do, let's go in here. And now you can see, it's going to put it into another window. So never mind. I'm going to just keep going. There is.
So this is what we're looking at for 400.
400. Here's 424. So see, like I told you, the house and is our garage, unfinished basement. And there is a garage for 424. It's been on the market for 18 days.
Are you finding that really well poses and are flying off the market quick?
Yes, in any market, whether it is a hot market or dead market, you have to price properly and it can still sell quickly. There's no reason for your house to sit on the market. There's buyers out there and it is summer, spring. We were just in like winter clothes last week and now it's like plus 32. It's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
What you'll notice too in Southeast Edmonton, you're going to find properties that are you're going to get more house for your money. I personally like the West End. Obviously, I'm biased because I live over here. You live in the Southeast area too. Let me just show you like new neighborhood because you're going to get different things for your money, right? So 4 to 450 in the West End, you've got a lot more options here. And I believe this one is probably a townhouse. So these townhouses with no condo fees became more prominent in the last 5 years. And so you don't have to pay condo fees, but you get a house. This looks like the old show home. It's listed only at 404. That is a really good deal. This is a really good deal. I can't believe this house is still on the market. Oh, are these the smaller ones? Let me just take a look. Paysetter. Wow, they were selling these for quite a bit more. But on the resale market, you can't get them for that cheap. So that's interesting. This one's 409 and it has a garage. Now, the pricing of what you can get for your money, you can finally predict it again. Like I'm relearning everything. Last year, the prices changed every 10 minutes. So I couldn't even tell you what you could get. Now, if I want to show some people like interior, so let's say Laurier Heights, that's one of the more popular neighborhoods for families. I don't know what you're going to get for $450,000 in Laurier Heights. 0. Let's get rid of this. Big fat 0. Can't buy anything. Probably like you can't even get land for that, I guess. 16 properties for sale in Laurier Heights anyways, in total right now. Laurier is really hard to get into because everyone always wants it and it usually goes pending pretty quickly. Lots of bungalow type homes. So, see? Not as dated as that other one we saw. Definitely dated though. It looks like they did the kitchen in the 90s with this. So this is a very traditional layout that you get in Edmonton for bungalows, where you get the living room on the one side and then bedrooms on the right-hand side with one bathroom, no ensuite. Sometimes you see these people change the third bedroom to a closet. This is a lot of stuff in the basement. So now when you get these older homes, see this looks like an old furnace. You do have to keep in mind. So can you do purchase plus improvements for furnaces?
Yes.
So if you have to get a furnace replacement, what can you talk a little bit about how furnaces, or sorry, not furnaces, purchase plus improvements mortgage work?
Sure. Purchase plus improvements. So if you are looking at a house and you don't like the kitchen, or the roof needs repair, like the needs in shingles or
windows,
flooring, then what we'll do is we get you to get a quote from a contractor for the work that you want done. Usually they'll do 10% of the purchase price, but we have had exceptions way more than that. As long as it adds the value to the house, the insurer will approve it. So say you're looking at a house that's 400,000 and you need 50,000 to add a garage. Your mortgage would then be 450,000. You'd need to put your down payment on the 450. And then you would have, once you moved in, then you would have 90 days to 120 days to do have the garage done by the contractor. Of course, with everything that it is right now, they will make an exception and let you do it longer for seasonal work. But yeah, it's a great way to get improvements done on the house that you wouldn't be able to afford right away as you move in.
So, I really like this house.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Done nice. Something about old houses you have to keep in mind. Do purchase plus improvements mortgage work for asbestos abatement?
Probably not.
So that's something people have to think about. Or what about Poly B?
Well, Poly B, no, not really, because it doesn't add a value to the house. It's just.
But it does. In theory, it adds value because people can't buy that. They can't live in that house. They have to, when they get the house, they have 30 days to replace all the Poly B because there's no house insurance that's going to give it to you anymore.
So it would
I was just looking in a low, like it was low 5. So if you're looking for something, a bungalow in Laurier Heights, you need to expect to spend about $550 to $650. Then you'll probably have some good options. So if you want to get into Laurier, that's definitely the minimum. But the sky's the limit here. There are some really nice houses. Like this is 1.1 million. Oh, this isn't built yet. So a builder is trying to entice you to buy, I think.
So I can talk really quickly about down payment because it does change. So minimum down payment is 5% up to a purchase price of 500,000. And then anything between 500,000 and $1 million, you add another 10%. So it'd be $25,000 up to 500, and then 10% on any amount over and above that. So say it's 700,000, you'd pay 25,000 up to 500, and then 20,000 on the extra 200,000, bringing
so the price
5,000.
Basically, so what you say over 5, then it changes.
Yeah, anything over 5 is 10%
minimum. You can't do the 5.
No, do 5 up to 500, and then 10% over and above that. And then once you hit $1 million, you're at 20%
minimum.
Well,
honestly, if someone's paying $1 million, they should have at least 20% down.
They are talking about getting changed. Like the government is talking about possibly changing that, just because the cost of buying a house is so much more.
But especially in not Alberta. Like I can't imagine. Like I'm showing you what you can buy here for this kind of price point, and that same house you're probably spending well over $2-3 million in like BC. Yeah. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So if someone is looking to buy their next house, like let's say they're moving to Laurier, they need to sell their house in Secord, and they have a good rate. Can you talk to me about, there's options. So there's porting and there's bridge financing. Can you talk about what those are so people understand that?
Sure. So porting is when you have a current mortgage and you buy another property. You're basically carrying the mortgage over to the new property.
So you're porting it over. Oh, we may have lost Stacey because she's frozen.
Oh, that's weird.
You froze for a second. Well, you're still. Oh, there you are. I don't know if I froze or you froze or what happened.
So yeah, for porting, if you can carry your mortgage over so you don't lose your rate, and then you just do a top up for the new mortgage amount. There's definitely a pro is like a positive is keeping the rate, but the con, like negative of that is that you have to keep the same amortization that you're at. So
Right.
if
Can you explain the amortization for people that maybe have
yeah,
forgotten what that is?
so when you buy your house, you have 25-year amortization. So it's the length of time that if you made all of your regular payments, you would pay your mortgage off in 25 years. So when you
Not the
go
length of your mortgage. It's
the
just
length of your mortgage, yeah.
no, it's not, but it's not the term of your mortgage. Like it's usually your term is usually 5 years or 3
Yeah,
years, but it's not 25 years. It's just
right.
how you guys calculate the mortgage payments.
Yeah, the term is like your current contract for the rate for the length of term, and then your amortization is the length of time it's going to take you to pay off your mortgage.
And the length of time also allows the mortgage payment to be smaller when the amortization is larger, right? Because I know in the States they do 30, 35, 40-year amortization. Right. So then their mortgage payment gets smaller. But do we have that here?
Well, that's the thing. If you were to buy a new property, you can increase your amortization back up to 25 years to help keep your payments low, which most people do when they're adding, a couple $100,000 to their mortgage at port. So you need to keep that in mind. Does it make sense for you to keep a 20-year amortization and a higher payment, or not port and go back down to 25 years with maybe a different interest rate, but what makes more sense for your family?
Right. And that's something important to talk to a mortgage broker about, because everyone's situation is completely different. When you port, there's also a time limit. I know that when we've put an offer on a house and possession is, let's say, May 5th for your new house and May 10th is your next house, well, when you close on your first house, you've got to think, wait a minute, I need that down payment. It's coming out of the house. How do I grab it? That is what bridge financing is, right?
Right. So bridge financing basically covers the gap from you moving into your house and selling your house. Allows you an extra 5-10 days to move.
What's the max you can do for bridge financing?
Well, there is no max, but you want to keep in mind.
Told me they thought it was a max.
No, I've done large.
And but there's a time limit for porting. So let's go back to that for a second. If you sold your house March 31st and you want to port it, but you haven't found a house yet, or the possession is not until September, like how close? How many? 90 days?
90 days.
So you have 90 days from when your house closes to when you take possession of the next house.
Yeah.
Right. So that's important to understand when we're looking and searching for homes. If you're moving from out of province into Alberta, look, someone's calling you for a mortgage now. So if they're moving from province to province, does it matter, or is it still the same?
Well, it depends on the lender. So in most cases, then no, it's not going to be an issue. But if it's like a treasury branch or a credit union, they're usually inter-province. So that's when you would have. But yeah, if it's, yeah.
So it doesn't matter. Yeah. And I think that's something important for people to understand, because it also, real estate is very different. In Vancouver, they have different days where they close. Ontario, I think, is similar as well. Ontario and Vancouver have the HST, and they've got some substantial closing costs that we don't have in Alberta. So I always tell people to keep that in mind. You don't need to pay that extra tens of thousands of dollars when you're buying and selling in Edmonton. So if you're selling your place in a hotter market, you might want to come here first to see what's up. Now, I do want to ask this, because I get this a lot, especially for people watching my YouTube channel and they're trying to move across provinces. They really want to live in Edmonton because it's more affordable. Makes sense. But they don't have a job here yet. But they have a job right now in Toronto. Can they buy right now? Potentially. I mean, I know this is a big question because every situation is different. But let's say the standard everyday person who has a job that's been in the job forever, they just want to move because it's better for their family. They're able to work virtually because that's been a new thing the last few years, different than.
Well, then that's a no-brainer. Yeah. So if they can get a letter from their employer saying that they can work virtually, move here, no questions asked.
And that is something I want people to really hear. The employer has to put it on paper to say that you can work virtually. Sometimes I think employers they say that you can, but they won't put it to paper.
Yeah,
so they're not going to put it to paper.
Yeah. Yeah, they need to say that either you can work remotely, you can work virtually, you can work anywhere across Canada, but a letter from the manager, or on the employment letter, it needs to date that.
And okay, so the other question is that when they come over, let's say they don't have a job.
Right.
And they want to get a job. Let's say they get a job. How long do they have to be in their job before they can do what they need to do?
It depends on the job. So if you don't have a probation period, the biggest the probation period. So if it's the same field current as where you come from, and you're guaranteed a certain amount of hours, and they'll put that on paper in the letter, we can use that. Usually we can get that. Let's just say they're moving to Alberta. It's the same field, going to move for, we can reason that with the lender. So
Okay.
that shouldn't be an issue. But if there is a probation period and it's a different form of work, that's where it gets key.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's why it's important to talk to a mortgage broker. It's all fine and dandy when you're on realtor.ca, just browsing around, looking. I could give my family more by coming over here. Like, they watch my videos and like, this is awesome. Look at her whole family's there, and you can have a life. You have to remember job is a big thing. Before we jump into questions,
sorry, I was going to say worst case is you move here, you get settled, and you buy a home.
Yeah,
that's the worst case, right? But let's look into it and see if we can make it work. That's what we want. We want you to be able to move seamlessly and have a home. Like, that's yours and my job.
Sometimes it's okay just to rent first, and you've heard that from a realtor. Because if you aren't from Edmonton, you don't maybe know what neighborhoods you actually want to live in until you get here. So you might think you want to live here based on a video or two, but then you live there and you're like, this is not for me. Now, it doesn't mean the whole city's not for you. You just lived in the wrong neighborhood and you need to kind of feel it out. So when you rent, it gives you a little bit more flexibility to do that. But before we jump into question and answer, if you're watching, please post some comments. I do see some questions here. I'm happy to answer some questions. Oh, hello, Sandra, watching from Edmonton. This is also something we were talking also about, people buying and selling here in Edmonton and moving from one neighborhood to another. I've helped a lot of families move from like the suburban area into like the infill or the more higher demand areas. And it's very different in terms of, what it is. So before we jump into the questions, I just want to talk about one more thing to do with the market now versus what the market was a couple of years ago, or last year even. Some of the things we've seen, I mentioned earlier, that you don't have to run to look at the house immediately. Probably want to look at it soon. And if you can make a quick decision, it's going to be to your benefit because we can get a solid offer in. And how do you make a quick decision? You have already talked to Stacey and already have a pre-approval so that we can make that quick decision, because you don't want that to hold you up. The other thing I was going to say is you can put conditions. I mean, you always have been able to, especially here compared to Vancouver and Toronto, but conditions are very common again. Financing and inspection are very common again. And we're even seeing some pending sale of buyers' homes. Because the market's not moving as quickly, sellers are more open to potentially seeing if they could accept that. And it's just a reality. There's some sellers that are still stuck in last year's pricing, and it's not going to move the property. So if you get an offer pending sale of buyer's home, it's better than nothing, right? Now you better hope that that buyer has their house priced to this year's market, because otherwise that house isn't going to move. Now, if you're curious as to the change in price this year versus last year, what I'm seeing is anywhere from an 8 to 10% difference in pricing. So it's definitely a sticker shock for sellers. Buyers are a little bit more excited about the prices being lower, but guess what? The interest rates are higher. So it kind of didn't exactly pay off necessarily to wait. I think a lot of people are wondering, oh no, did I just rush into it? I'm like, you have a crazy good rate. Just because you paid a little bit more, real estate is a hold product. You buy and hold. The equity will come back and you don't have to worry. But negotiations is also another thing that I want to talk about that is different this year than it was last year. We're not seeing 10, 20 offers. If we're seeing multiple offers, we're maybe seeing 3 to 5. We're seeing a very different pace. Spring market this year was not as normal busy as a spring we've seen, especially what we've been used to the last couple of years. Oh, hello, Arlene from Toronto. There's all these people watching from all over the place. It's so awesome. So Sandra from Edmonton wants to understand bridge financing again. Can you explain bridge financing?
Sure. So bridge financing is when you are buying and selling a property. So when you have the possession, you only need bridge financing if you have your possession date of your new home before the sale date of your existing. You have to have an unconditional sale on your current house in order to get bridge financing, but it basically covers the gap. So if you say take possession on June 1st, but your sale date is June 17th, the lender will borrow you your down payment from your sale proceeds for those 17 days. The cost, depending on each lender, it's $250 to $500 for the base fee and then a daily interest.
Which
on
honestly,
the money borrowed only.
That's cheaper than going to rent a storage unit and moving twice, especially if you have kids. What a pain in the rear end. I mean, in the summertime, maybe people can take off and come back again, but bridge financing is more than worth it. I think too, to coordinate bridge financing, you've got to understand and work with a realtor, then mortgage broker. Like, we're a team, so we talk all the time, and I know what is able to happen, and we're working in your benefit. I'm not working to max you out because I know Stacey. That's not how I work at all. It's just we want to understand how your situation works. So, for example, if they want bridge financing, that's something I would have talked about in the buyer consultation, and would have discussed that. So I need to look at, what is your house worth here in Edmonton, and what are you looking to buy? These two neighborhoods make a big difference, okay? Because if we know your neighborhood is hot and it was going to sell in 2 seconds, I'm going to recommend that we go look for your house first. Now, you might say to me, oh my gosh, if I find a house, how am I going to do this bridge financing thing? How am I going to coordinate it? Well, what I do, again, because I know, let's say that your house area is going to sell quickly, and I give you a price and you're like, that's the price we're going to do, I'm pretty confident we'll sell it in a couple weeks, and I can estimate as to when we'd have it. So when we go look at a house and put an offer in, I'm going to ask for 60, 90 days, right? And we'll put an offer for, let's say, 90 days possession. Then that's accepted. We go through Stacey to get the conditions removed. And now you're like kind of freaking out, because how are you going to get bridge financing when you haven't even sold your house? Well, as soon as we get that going, we're going to put your house on the market immediately. As soon as that. So you talked to me before, we're going to have everything ready to go. All the photos are going to be done. Everything's done. I could just hit a button and then your listing goes live. So it goes live. Your house sells really quickly. So when your house gets an offer, we go and negotiate the date with the date that you have. So if you negotiate a July 5th and for your new house, then for your next one, you're like, you know what? We don't want anything until after July 5th. But now you have a date that you can coordinate, and you've already talked to Stacey about bridge financing, so you know the cost. And if that buyer for your home really wants to move in sooner, well, then we can also call, I've done this before, that other house that you have an offer on, and see if we can bump up the possession date. So it is a juggling act when it comes to porting bridge financing, but that's why the team is so important.
Right. And I just want to say, bridge financing is your equity in your house. So it's really important to figure out how much you're going to sell your house for, what you currently owe on your mortgage. Do you need to pay debts with some of your sale proceeds? Those can all be incorporated in bridge financing. So
hopefully we answered Sandra's question. Now let's take a look at our next question. We've got John talking about, if the house is paid in cash, is it possible to get a HELOC on it right away?
Great question. Yes, absolutely. And we have lenders in Alberta. If you have really great credit, they'll actually go to, most lenders are 65% loan to value. So they'll put a home equity line of credit on it for 65% of the value. No funds advanced. You don't have to advance funds if you don't want it. But if you do want it, we can advance funds right away. And lenders will go up to 80% on exception with really great credit.
Okay. Hopefully that answers John's question. We have Arlene, hi again from Toronto. And Dennis, or Denis, or hopefully I said it right. Are Bonnie Doon homes overpriced at the moment? Wow, that's a loaded question. I think it depends on the property that you're specifically talking about. Bonnie Doon has always been a pretty high priced property area. Let me share my screen, and oops, let's take a look at Bonnie Doon. What I'll do is I'll just show you what has sold, so you can, I don't know what house you're talking about necessarily, so I don't know if you're asking about a specific property, but what I'll do is I'll show you the sales in the last 30 days in Bonnie Doon. So there's been 3 properties. That's not very many that have sold in the last 3 days, from $497 to $820,000. So this is what has sold. This is what people are actually paying. Okay, not the actives. The actives is, to me, a dream on the wall. Sometimes you could ask the world and you won't get it. But when you look at the sold, that's what's reality. That's where someone was able to put money where their mouth is. So this is the more expensive one that sold. I'm just trying to see the inside. This is actually a house I don't normally see in Bonnie Doon. Oh, I think I actually shown this house before. So it's pretty nice. Interesting backsplash. Nice house. Decent size, and it's quite wide. I mean, this is like a newer house that's done in there. 820,000, 2,000 square foot. And then there's other 2 stories. So these are all what we call infill properties, where they've put a newer house on. This looks like a duplex. So yes, this is a duplex. This is a very traditional layout as well too, but it depends on the house. If you're talking about honestly, it's not even the area, it's the specific seller may have not put the price properly or not. It's all very specific. So I don't know if that really answered Dennis's question, but hopefully I gave you some sort of answer. When you work with like an agent or myself, like I actually will pull up the comparables for you on the houses we're looking at to make sure that we're not overpaying. That's the most important thing. You got to do the research, right?
Well, and a lot of times on my end, if it's insured less than 20% and then it doesn't pass an internal valuation system for the lenders, they'll order an appraisal on their end. And if it's 20% or more and it doesn't pass their internal valuation, then you pay for an appraisal. So there's a couple ways to make sure that you're, that the lenders make sure that you're not overpaying too.
I didn't see very many properties. Maybe you can speak to this a bit from last year. I didn't see anybody get refused their mortgage based off the appraisal, even though our market started to go crazy. Did you see anybody get rejected?
I didn't see anybody get rejected, but I did have one property where it was overpriced by about $8,000 and the clients paid it out of pocket.
So they did say no to the mortgage for that amount.
They said to the value. They said it was about $8,000.
Was that last year?
Overvalued. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't see it like I expected it, because I figured, oh my gosh, people are paying so much more. But the appraisers somehow, I don't know if they did this or what they did. But I know in Toronto and Vancouver, you see that all the time, the overpricedness. And the fact that people pull this money, I don't know from where, out of their pocket to pay $50,000, $100,000. I think some clients, when they move from BC to Edmonton, they think I have to pay more. In Edmonton, we are like, why are you paying that much money for that house? I have another look at this. Another question: are house prices in Desrocher and Allard area overpriced this year? So I'm seeing a trend. Everyone is wondering if the houses are overpriced, and the easiest way for you to see if a house is overpriced, you just need to call me and I can tell you.
100%.
But the other thing
too, tell her at her job.
But if you take a look at the fact that the house has been sitting for longer than 30 days, then it's overpriced. Under 30 days, you got to give people a little bit more grace this year, because things don't move as fast, because buyers aren't moving as quickly, because look, they're wondering if things are overpriced. They're wondering if they should be buying it or not looking at it or whatnot. And that's, again, when we do the consult, we talk about all those things to make sure that you're not looking at an overpriced house. When you look at and do a search, last year I was telling people, if your budget's $500, don't look at houses to $500. Look at a max of $450, because we're going to have to overbid all the way potentially up to $500. This year, it's not like that at all. If your budget is $500, I'm looking up to $525. Not to say that the $525 guy is going to come down to $500, but those properties have been sitting on the market for a while. We might miss seeing those and maybe they should be at 500,000, right?
Right.
So there's some thoughts over there. In terms of like DeRoche and Allard are both in the south side, but I cannot again speak like Bonnie Doon where it's like I can't just say, oh, they're all overpriced. New build properties are a lot more expensive than the resale. That's something I can say. Whether it's overpriced or not is, you know, your opinion as to if they're overpriced. But before our global craziness 2 years ago, it was cheaper to buy new than it was to buy resale. And then it just spiked like a gong show. Like you thought resale went up, new builds went up like crazy. And it was too much. It was too much money. There was unpredictability in time. And I'm actually going to be doing one of these next week with one of our builders that I work with. I might do it with two of them. And just so you know, if you're from Edmonton, you know this. If it's on a game night, it's not going to happen. We had to move this thing so that it wasn't on game night. Although that game was so frustrating yesterday. I couldn't handle the stress. Like the first
Don't talk about it.
period, and then the second, and then the third. I'm just like, oh. So if you're Edmontonian, you can feel the pain of the game yesterday. So we will do another one of these on a non-game night, and hopefully we're still in the playoffs. That's what I'm hoping for.
We will be.
They'll pull back. I pull back. They'll come back. They'll come back with a vengeance. I have some questions from before that I'm going to bring up. So if anyone has questions that's watching, feel free to just jump in. Here's a question that we had put in from before. Am I limited to my pre-approval amount? So we talked about pre-approvals earlier, and they get you're pre-approved for 500,000, but then they want to move to Laurier and they need 550 to 600. Are they hooped?
No. So you have few options. So if interest rates keep coming down, of course, you're going to qualify for more because we're qualifying at the interest rate plus 2%. So you can qualify for more now than you could 4 months ago. So that is one way. The other is we can add a cosigner. We can look at adding a cosigner. Maybe somebody from your family will come on and help you for a year. And after a year, you can apply for the mortgage on your own and have them removed and release a covenant. There's some income that we haven't looked at yet. Maybe you have children.
There's like a giant tax return coming.
Oh yeah. Like you can increase your down payment. Like there's just, or you get a raise.
So if you have a pre-approval amount based on 5%, that's going to be different than if you put down 10% or 20%.
100%. Because it changes your insurance that you pay. So it does make quite a big difference. And the other thing too is rental suite. Like maybe you're buying a property with a basement suite, and we can use rental income to help help you qualify for more. So there's definitely little things. You know, the one thing I was going to say is maybe we aren't using a child tax benefit. You know, maybe you have children, we haven't considered that. So there are definitely different ways, talking to a mortgage broker, talking to a professional. Maybe there are things that somebody else overlooked that we can help you qualify for more.
One thing I also think you should do is if the pre-approval was not done by Stacey, you should ask Stacey. You never know. I don't really trust necessarily all brokers. They're not all alike. And maybe they approved you for this and you're actually approved for this. They just didn't know how to structure things. Just saying.
Yeah.
Here's another question. Well, we kind of talked about this earlier. Do I need a pre-approval this year to buy? 100%.
You always need a pre-approval.
And you know what? Earlier this year, and I'm sure it's still happening, I was seeing on the listing side, offers come in and we insisted for a pre-approval letter. And the majority of them don't have it. Right. Now, why did we ask for it? Well, because we accepted an offer that then ended up falling apart because of financing. Now, just because we see the pre-approval letter does not mean that that buyer is going to necessarily approve. Can you talk about that? Because people wonder, hey, I got a pre-approval letter. Why didn't I get the mortgage?
Well, that's the difference between pre-approval and pre-qualify. So pre-qualify, they just look at it. They don't pull your credit. They just look at your numbers really quick. What you've told them is what they use. Pre-approval, we get current credit. We get job letter, pay stub, T4s. Maybe we can use your overtime. Like I said before, child tax benefit. I use all of that in great detail to make sure that you know exactly what you can qualify for, so that when you go shop, you aren't heartbroken but looking at finding a place you don't like, that you fall in love with, and you can't buy it. Pre-approval is really important. It saves everybody time, and so much time.
And it's just, you want to position yourself in the best way possible, right? So just get it done.
Well, and having a pre-approval letter, like you can attest to it, having a pre-approval letter in with your offer, and being able, because we have a pre-approval, we can maybe do like a 4 or 5 day financing instead of 2 weeks. There's so many things with a pre-approval that help strengthen the deal, shows the sellers that you're serious, shows the other realtor that you're serious. There's, it can help you win that dream home.
We've got 10 more minutes. So for anyone watching that has that burning question, I'm still watching for the comments. So pop in there if you want, and we'll answer your questions. When do I talk to an agent? Do I wait till I find something online? I don't want to waste anyone's time. Well, okay. So you're wasting time if you don't talk to an agent first. Actually, you're wasting more time if you're not talking to the mortgage broker first. Don't wait till you find something online. Last year, when people were waiting and they found something online, it was already gone, right? And we still have access to properties before they hit the market. If I know what you're looking for, I can make sure to turn all the things. Now, just like we talked earlier about sellers having unrealistic expectations of what they can get for their home, thinking it's last year, we are also seeing buyers come with some unrealistic expectations because they're like, the market's crashing. I'm going to get a deal. I am going to get this house. You're coming maybe from Toronto, or maybe you're a first-time home buyer in Edmonton, or maybe you're just in Edmonton just wanting to upgrade. You're like, yes, the market's falling down. The interest rates are falling down. I'm going to get my dream home in Laurier Heights for $450,000. No, it's not going to happen. Sometimes people think they're just going to wait a long time until they find that perfect home for it to come on the market. But guess what? It's kind of, I said this to someone before. He says to me, Melody, when a girl is waiting for her like perfect man, that's like what I'm doing with the house. I said, oh, you mean the girl that is the person sitting in their home by themselves with a bunch of cats? Like, you're not being realistic about what you can get. You have to compromise. And so if you're only willing to spend this much money in your price, and this is the location, this is the kind of house you're going to get. Whether you like it or not, that's what it is going to be. If you want a house that's newer and your price point is this, you're going to get this. Like, maybe you're going to have to get a condo. Maybe that's the compromise you're going to have to make. It just doesn't exist. And we talk about this in our consult: location, price, and type of home. Which one are you willing to compromise on? People think, I'm not going to compromise. I don't need to compromise. I'm just going to wait. Well,
eventually you compromise.
Yeah. You compromise by continuing to rent. That's what you compromise on. You will compromise on your home ownership goal. And so I think it's really important that, I just ranted for a second there, but it's just, you can't wait till you find something online either, because it's just, and online never looks the same as in real life. You never know. Like today I showed a house and the smell was really, really strong. Can't really do anything about that one. So anyways, I don't know if I see any other questions. There was one more question that, this one. Should I wait till the fall to buy? Because the interest rate's going to be lower. And Melody, didn't you just say the houses are dropping in price? I did not say that. They dropped from last year, but our market is starting to adjust. And our normal Edmonton market goes up by 1 to 2%. It's not that much. So if you're waiting for the market to come down, you're waiting for a 1% decrease on a property, that costs you more than your rent. And
we don't know where interest rates are going.
And even if it's going to be lower, it's not going to be 2%. Right? No. Like that's where it's going to make a massive difference if it's like 2% different. So I think that's what we're starting to see. People are starting to build their confidence again. You need to work with a team that knows what they're doing to help you, educate you, so that you can make a decision that's comfortable to you. Especially when you're selling and buying, it's a gong show if you try to do it by yourself. It's too much stress. That's not your job. That's our job. Yeah, that's where I get like my white hairs from, is taking on all your stress. I'm Asian. I'm not supposed to have white hair, but I take on all my clients' stress because I want to protect you and I want to make sure that you are the least stressed that you possibly can be, right? Because it is a stressful time. It's a big purchase. It's the thing that you're going to own the most or have the most. But if you don't follow us on Instagram, make sure to pop on to, my Instagram. You should not look at this one. That's my coaching one. Melody_Realtor is where you need to go. And then Stacey Petruch, you'll also find her on Instagram as well. If you're not on my YouTube channel but you've watched, thank you. Please subscribe. Don't miss out on anything. And next week we'll be live with a new build update because I know some of you guys who watch like to know what is going on in the new build world. So thanks so much for watching, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks so much.